All right, good evening. Thanks everyone for coming along. I think we made short work of the pizzas. I'll turn my piano music off. It's kind of nice. Oh.
Those superhero things kind of pump up the mood a bit,
It's
as opposed to piano.
I couldn't get it through here. But. All right, thanks for coming along. Welcome. Tonight, or at least the start of tonight, have a little agenda, tell you who I am. We'll talk about some upcoming CocoaHeads events, briefly mention our code of conduct, go on to tonight's speaking agenda, sponsors, and then we'll ask everyone who's hiring. So if you're not sure who I am and why I'm up the front, my name's Jesse. I've been developing iOS apps in Melbourne since 2010-ish, and I've been bringing the beer along and ordering the pizza since about 2014. That photo of me is not a recent photo, but it is at this venue. They've just renovated it as well again. Every month this year we've come here, everything's a bit different. There's normally chairs up here for sort of salon conversations, you know. Yep, so it's getting a bit more sophisticated every month. Yeah, the black covers on the tables at the back there, feels like a bit like a conference. Bit professional even. Upcoming events, excluding tonight, Hack Night is next Wednesday. We've got a new venue this month. Hack Night's kind of doing its little tour around Melbourne until we can find a permanent home. We're at Cognizant, which is just down the road here, next Wednesday night. Drinks Night is the last Tuesday, the 31st, in the city as well. NS Breakfast is August, the first Friday of August. Myris, did you want to change that? Where's Myris sitting? To Richmond-ish next month? Thinking Richmond? All right, we'll announce.
Last week it was just me. So
Yeah, we're open to
Well, if it's just you, you can have it anywhere you like.
and hoping in Jarvis is probably preferable.
Okay, cool. Also, after next month's meetup, there's also, I've just mentioned, DevWorld is a sort of, I guess, Mac developer conference, or, you know, a Mac ecosystem developer conference in Melbourne. That's August 26th to 28th.
I think early bird tickets are still available.
Right.
For a couple of days. For a couple of days,
Yep.
yeah. So
And
if
that's-
you're interested in DevWorld, and it's definitely worth attending, check it out in the next couple of days.
discounts.
And if you're a student, but if you're a student, you probably found out through other channels.
Yeah, I think it's at RMIT.
Yeah.
The photo here is from Hack Night, one of the first Hack Nights we ran this year. It's been a huge success. It's all ages, super friendly, no alcohol, different food. Like, we had pizza one month, but different food. So balance your diet. We had sushi,
We've had
Turkish, once pizza.
We're always open to suggestions for catering ideas too, if you have them.
Oh, and it's joint with the Google Developers Group as well. That's how inclusive it is. Everyone's invited. As in, it's really good. There's actually different faces from both sides. It's really great.
And if you're at all interested in learning or furthering your Android skills, it's also a good opportunity to pick their brains.
You can find more information about CocoaHeads, our events, bits and pieces on our website, Twitter. We have a Slack channel that has a fair bit of activity throughout the week. Got a new rumours channel for anyone who doesn't want to hear about the potential upcoming Macs that are coming out in the main channel. It's now rumours. That's very exciting. We have a YouTube channel. I live stream every event on YouTube and then edit the videos and re-upload them with, you know, your name and title after the fact. So if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, I think we need about 50 more subscribers till I can get a proper URL for the YouTube channel. And I'm Jesse at melbournecocoaheads.com as well. CocoaHeads on YouTube, that's it. That's an example of YouTube screenshot.
Oh.
What?
Sorry, I filmed myself.
Yeah, so we've got this really awkward angle on the camera, and it's basically that in the corner. We have a code of conduct, Melbourne CocoaHeads, which is something we put together at the end of last year. And I think it's really important that we've got one, and I'm really happy that we've managed to put one together. But basically, the the TLDR of it is we're dedicated to providing an inclusive environment regardless of gender identity, expression, age, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, religion or lack thereof, or technology choices. That one is quite specific to... it's melbournecocoaheads.com/code-of-conduct. Been meaning to change that for months to just code of conduct. Haven't got around to it. If you think there has been, you've experienced an issue or there is an issue or you've witnessed something, you can send an email to codeofconduct@melbournecocoaheads.com and that comes to a few of us that help put the code of conduct together. You can be anonymous, you can, anything you submit is completely confidential as well. I'd like to mention our sponsors for this year, and the sponsors pay for the beer, the pizza, the venue, the Hack Night food, the time and effort, some of the time and materials that we had to go to live stream things. Our major sponsor is realestate.com.au. They've been a great sponsor for years now. The realestate.com.au team is here. At least a couple of you are. Prasanna is speaking later on. Our silver sponsors, again, a list of Melbourne's long-term sponsors. Itty Bitty Apps, Biloo, J-Tribe, Cognizant, who are hosting the Hack Night next month, or this month, and Explore, who are upstairs. I saw the Explore team at the back there. Thanks, guys. Our venue is YBF Ventures, and I think we're all really enjoying coming here, so I'm going to try and get that next year as well. Tonight's agenda, we'll have some pizza beforehand, intros now. Vlas will be up first, talking about marzipan. That should be interesting, lots of questions. Prasanna's going to talk about architecture for scaling mobile as well. So Prasanna's from REA Group, as I said. They have a big mobile app, lots of scaling there, I'm sure. And then we'll go to the pub afterwards for those who are interested. Before I get out of the way, we'll do our kind of monthly who's hiring. So if you or your company's hiring, you want to just put your hands up and I'll go around the room and kind of, all right, I'll start where Rob is. And if you just get up and say who you are, where you're from, and what you're looking for, and I'll grab your details and put them in the Slack channel later on.
I'm Roy. I'm from Compass Digital Business. We look for iOS devs. We do a lot of work with the major banks. So come talk to me if you're interested.
Also, roles that you've got.
Mainly senior, I guess.
Senior iOS devs.
Thanks, Roy.
Just speaking to the mic, guys, it's helpful for people on the live stream.
Sure. Hi, my name's Laura. I'm from Domestic Cat Software in Abbotsford. We are looking for mid-range and senior-level iOS developers. We're doing some really exciting projects with startups in Silicon Valley at the moment. Can't tell you who it is. And we're also doing some really cool and challenging IoT projects. So come and see if you're interested.
There was...
I'm Troy from Seek. I've got a bunch of roles at the moment. I sort of have conduct, so I can say this one. We have a lead Android dev role. We have 3 mid to senior iOS dev roles and 2 other Android dev roles and 3 mobile product manager roles, 1 which is senior. So interested in working at Seek. It's an awesome place.
How does finding jobs at Seek work?
Hi everyone, I'm Gio. I work with iFlix. We're hiring iOS developers of any level. If you're junior, we'll train you up. If you're senior, we'll get you to work on cool stuff. If you want to work on an app that is deployed across many regions, emerging market, different challenges, cool network, lot of live streaming. We just finished, it's not finished, but like we are live streaming the World Cup in Africa, and we did a lot of work to optimize, all the networking and the resources to deal with that poor connectivity. So if these sort of like unusual challenges excite you, come talk to me.
Awesome. So thanks to Roy, Laura, Troy, and Gio. I've got most of your details. I'll echo that into the Slack jobs channel. All right, so I'll get out of the way, and we'll get Vlas up to talk about marzipan. Now's a great opportunity to refresh your beverage. The bathrooms are out the back. Go left. Don't go out the door. Don't go down site. Keep going that way. They're at the end. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Cheers.
Good evening. My name is Wes. I am from Itty Bitty Apps, and tonight I would like to give you a taste of iOS Mac, or as you probably know it better, marzipan. I keep calling it marzipan because that's how you would pronounce that in Russian. Anyway, so many of you probably remember that the rumors of the certain technology that allows iOS apps to run on the Mac have started back in December. And obviously that generated some talk. And you know, people, of course, had feelings about it. Fast forward to April, when a different rumor has surfaced about a cross-platform declarative UI framework. And apparently marzipan was not a real thing, but, well, again, rumors. But finally, we went to dub, and at the very end of the presentation about Mojave, the new version of macOS, Craig Federighi asked the question that was on everyone's mind, whether they were merging iOS and macOS. And I suppose the answer that we were given was a definite kinda. Well, just kidding, but well, what we were given as a sneak peek into what they're working on, and what they were working on and still are, is a technology that essentially allows you to take your iOS app, make just a few changes to its source code, compile to on an architecture that you're already compiling for, specifically simulator, that's x86-64, and use UIKit as you were, maybe with some additions, and make it work on the Mac and link to a certain version of UIKit. And the way they make it work is by providing all sorts of mapping technology, mapping techniques that bridge the AppKit experience with the UIKit experience, and thus make the whole thing seamless. And I actually like this slide because it goes into quite some detail about what exactly they're doing. And if you go through this whole list and then actually look into the implementation, there's a lot of matching things. However, we were told that us, third-party developers, will only be able to use that in 2019, and that's fair enough. And it's pretty obvious why they would announce it now, because, well, they're shipping apps with macOS Mojave that use this technology, and obviously people would still pick it apart, so people would still know about it. But, you know, I got interested, obviously, what they're doing internally, and given that the apps themselves are UIKit apps, iOS apps, certainly there was something interesting going on inside that we could reveal, I suppose. So, disclaimer, obviously, the stuff I'm going to talk about further is not official information. That's just what I've been able to pick apart. So take that with a grain of salt. And obviously, because the framework itself is still work in progress, it doesn't reflect really what we are going to see in a year. So first, a little bit about how an iOS app, well, sorry, a UIKit app, I'm probably going to call it that, or rather iOS Mac app, because that's the internal name that's used in a few places. I think the platform is what they're calling iOS Mac, while Marzipan is actually the code name. I'll show that a bit later. So when you start an iOS Mac app, like Stocks, for example, this app, of course, links against multiple frameworks, including some of the common ones, some that are common with Mac OS apps. Some are specific to iOS apps. But something special about iOS Mac apps is that they are protected with special entitlements that doesn't allow just anyone to start using this technology today. And of course, with all the code signing, the hardened runtime, with system integrity protection and mobile file system integrity, with all these systems, you cannot really just start and hack inside it without actually disabling all these things. And of course, the code signing with entitlements make sure that it will be very hard, even though people try, to start using that yourself. In terms of the frameworks and libraries that iOS apps usually use, they actually sit in this new folder called iOS support, or the /system/iOS support. And the other ones are still in their usual system library frameworks and private frameworks directory. However, two special frameworks that any iOS Mac app needs to link against are these two: UIKit System App Services and UIKit Host App Services. The first one provides an XPC connection to UIKit System App Process. Now that is actually a launch agent. It's launched by the system on demand if you're running any iOS Mac app. And it's shared, it's shared among all iOS Mac apps running on the system. Of course, the system can also kill it if no other iOS Mac apps are running and maybe the system is low on memory. And essentially what it provides is something similar to what the frontboard services on iOS, tvOS, and watchOS provides. And that's, it's slightly different, but things like remote notifications, I think that's push notifications essentially, and some connection to the Windows server is what this app provides to all the services, to all the iOS Mac apps. The other thing is what I'm going to focus next, and that's UIKit Host App. That is a process that's launched per iOS Mac app, and that is essentially the other side of the bridge. That's the macOS surface of your UIKit app, essentially. And again, for communicating between these, between the framework that's inside the app and the the system apps, XPC is used with this interesting new framework called ROCKit. I think ROC stands for Remote Object Connection or Remote Object Communication, and that seems to be a replacement to the old and kind of self-deprecated technology called distant objects, I believe. But, well, again, it's internal, obviously. And so UIKit host app is kind of special. The app is bootstrapped immediately when the iOS Mac app is launched. And what this thing does immediately is it actually starts pretending that it's the app you've launched. It inherits the icon, the name, even the bundle path. It even pretends that it even allows accessing user defaults of your original app. So it does lots of magic even from the beginning. And if you, for example, try to look at Activity Monitor while an iOS Mac app is running, it would be kind of deceiving because you would see two apps with the same name, but only one of them will have an icon. The thing is, the one that has an icon is the UIKit host app. The other one without an icon is the UIKit app. You can see that the CPU time actually kind of gives it away, and you can see from process IDs which process launched first and which one was second. And itself, UIKit host app looks pretty simple. Here, that's the view debugger attached to UIKit host app. It's a Swift app. It has one storyboard, a view controller, and obviously a toolbar, and provides the menus and all that. And the biggest part of it, really, from the UI perspective, is the view that has a layer host in it. So what it does, really, yes, as I said, it impersonates the original app that you launched. It displays UIKit content via layer hosting. And as you have heard from the keynote and State of the Union, it provides the event mapping. It passes all the mouse or trackpad events as human interface device events to UIKit, including things like even quick look and drag and drop interactions. It proxies a lot of things like drop targets, text areas, accessibility areas, which is pretty important. And it deals with all the AppKit specific and Mac-like behaviors like context menus, pageboard sharing, opening URL in both ways. So, for example, if you try to open URL from inside the UIKit app, Safari launches. Window reciting, of course, even size classes, and automatic system appearance is also pretty cool. I'm going to cover that in just a moment. On the other side of this fence, of this bridge, is UIKit Core. Now, that's essentially UIKit. For some reason, they renamed it, and now UIKit Core is a private framework, but UIKit essentially just is now a very thin interface to UIKit Core. And on macOS specifically, it provides an interface and observation mechanism to UIKit host. And it provides quite a few interesting classes. All of them, of course, are starting with @_, like UI menu bar controller, UI menu bar item, UI window toolbar item, and all the different subclasses. And notable one of them is UI window toolbar share item, which you have seen in a few apps like news and stocks. UI touch bar controller, UI touch bar item, and subclasses. All of these essentially allow the UIKit app to control the Mac behavior, the AppKit behavior. And of course, all these are available only to the Mac version of UIKit. They are not there on your iOS devices. Two interesting ones are automatic focus ring and scroller implementation. I'm going to show that in just a moment. And the other interesting bit is how when you, for example, present an alert or action sheet or an activity view, UIKit Core essentially interposes that and sends the request off to the host app to present the Mac experience. Automatic system appearance is pretty interesting. You might have seen in the UIKit headers on iOS 12 that the dark appearance have appeared. appeared. I guess one of the reasons for that was that, yes, on macOS, the macOS appearance needs to be automatically adopted by the UIKit app, and that's what's happening. A few system colors and scrollers, the focus ring color, apparently some tab bar colors, and the appearance of table views with sidebar style, they all adapt to the current mode. Other things that UIKit Core needs to deal with is adopting to key or non-key appearance of the window. Library sizing, of course. There's this interesting class called UI Druid Source Connection, UI Druid Destination Connection. I suppose the DR means drag and drop, right? And finally, the screen scale. You might have seen that the UIKit app is actually scaled down to present the controls, I suppose, in a more comfortable way. It's actually hard-coded at 0.77 for reasons. And one notable omission in UIKit Core macOS is UI WebView. It's deprecated in iOS 12, and it's simply not there on macOS. I suppose for a good reason. Now, what I wanted to show is a bit more about the automatic focus ring and scrollers. So these two things, which we know about from macOS, like when you start editing a text field and it displays a blue, well, or maybe differently colored ring around the text field, and also a differently rendered scrolling indicators, they are also inside UIKit, because obviously otherwise it would kind of look weird when they're in the host. They might get out of sync. And so, yeah, there are special classes inside UIKit Core that deal specifically with rendering those. Like this. They're actually layers for some reason, but well, I'm sure for a good reason. So overall, yeah, there's lots and lots of magic going on there, and it's kind of fascinating in a way, but also kind of freaky that this whole mechanism had to go. Well, the developers of that had to go into such lengths and such pains to mimic essentially all these behaviors and bridge all those. And I suppose they know what they're doing because, well, they are the platform owners, so they know what behaviors exactly to bridge. And of course, we'll know more in years to come. Now, really, what I wanted to finish with is actually a little demo. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch, let's say, stocks. So of course, as I mentioned, in order to do anything, to attach a debugger to any iOS Mac app, actually any Mac app these days as well, to inject things into them, to do all the stuff, you need to disable system integrity protection, MFI, library validation. I'm not going to show how to do that. You can Google it up because it's not a recommended thing to do, especially on your day-to-day computer. So I'm just going to quickly show how that looks like. Now, one thing I forgot about is that I need an internet connection to do that. Sorry?
What's the Apple stock at?
Oh, that's just stocks.
There is Wi-Fi here.
Does it assume that it's an iPad version?
Yes, it does. Just because.
iPad simulator you said, right?
Sorry?
Was the iPad simulator you said it was?
Stocks, no, it's not an iPad simulator. I'm just gonna connect it to my personal hotspot because that probably should be quicker. Oh, sorry. It's connected to AirPlay.
It should have, if it's on the Wi-Fi, it should have internet.
You might need to just go through Facebook's.
Oh, no, that's all right. It's, again, running a beta OS, so things can go wrong.
Stay on the Wi-Fi though, so you're going to lose everything.
Guessed?
No, stay on it. Just open a browser and do the crappy authentication.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm not on Wi-Fi. Okay.
Tell you everything if you're not on Wi-Fi.
Okay. I'm gonna skip that part. Instead, no. Instead, I'm gonna use an app that doesn't require an internet connection. which is voice memos. So let's record something. Let's pause that, and let's say done. Okay, so now I'm just gonna connect my debugger to it. I think it's called voice something something. Okay, maybe it's called something else. That's fine. I can just try and create some activity here. It's called voice memos. Okay, there you go. There you go, voice memos. Of course, it asks for my password to control another process. And in a few seconds, it's, okay, there you go. It has attached. First thing I want to actually show is, oops, I've just detached, is the UIKit host app. This one actually is for stocks because I didn't look what I'm clicking. And if I just use view debugger, here it is. So we got a view controller here, scene view controller, some views in here, input view, and here this special view, scene view.
Can you make it bigger?
I don't think so. Maybe like this. So this layer, I will, oops. Okay, let's turn the presentation mode on. And so if I print this layer, you can see how, the sub-layers here, one of them is a CA layer host. So that's the layer that proxies UIKit content, and you can see how the transform is 77% scale. Okay, so that's easy. Now let's do the same thing with the UIKit app. Now here I will need to paste, sorry? Wow, okay. I'm just gonna print some commands. Oh no. Oh. All right. Now the thing is, in the first beta it worked perfectly. Unfortunately, in the later beta, they changed something in the behavior of DYLDs, so I had to go through a few more hoops to make reveal work. For some reason, the load methods are not called on the thing, but, you know. And in just a few seconds, we'll have our thing. Yay! All right. So here's our app. You can see, interestingly, that the table view, even though in the on the Mac app you see there it has a vibrant behavior, on the UIKit app side, sorry, I suppose it probably provides some color magic that gets bridged into the right appearance. And so if I look here in this scroller imp container view and enable hidden views, you can see the scrollers. Obviously, they're hidden right now. What else? Focus ring, right? There you go. There's a search bar. You can, by the way, for now at least, it's not difficult to poke holes in this thing. So you can, maybe if you say, hide the toolbar, then put it into full screen, something is maybe broken and you put it back and now you, yeah. But that's fine, you know, one thing at a time. Yeah. So if I now refresh this and open the search bar, settable intrinsic size view, well that's gonna be handy for everyone, right? That's not the right thing. I was looking for a search bar right here. Okay. I need to refresh using holding commands so it doesn't lose key state. And there it is, our automatic focus ring. What else to show? It's.
I was just going to ask: is the US range mapped to the window itself?
I'm not sure. It's possible. it's possible that what is being hosted is the window, because what I remember from reverse engineering this thing is that there is like a single special, like a Mac window that it puts the content in, I suppose. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. What I do see here is that the screen size is actually, where do we put this information? Ah, that's a window. The screen size is kind of large. It's 1920 by 1980. That's the size of my real screen, so I suppose that's what it gives me. But the window itself is smaller. So I can say hide that, and so it becomes obvious. Of course, we visualize the information that we know about. So, of course, for the window coordinate system, it makes more sense. What else? A bunch of layers going on here in voice recording, for example, but not sure if it's going to be very interesting to pull these apart. I wanted to show stocks, of course, but yeah, no internet connection. Wah, wah. Oh, wait. I have a fallback. I have some snapshots. We'll need
Were you able to get that at a default reveal, or did you have to use reveal to get it?
the latest one.
Can you just repeat the question when you get that?
Sorry?
Just repeat the question when you get that.
Oh, sure. The question was whether I use the normal default version of reveal to do that, and the answer is the latest one, because there was one change I needed to do in order to make the reveal load command work. It was just around making sure that it recognizes the iOS Mac platform. Here, I think the only funny thing I could show with this snapshot of news is that, I don't know if you know, but many of these text labels are actually images. Optimization, right?
That's one way to get around it, I suppose.
Yeah, performance.
Well, text is hard, man.
Yeah, of course. And layout is also hard, by the way. Layout is, they've improved that. Anyway, if you would like me to show you something else, or you have some questions, go ahead. No one?
So that's the end of the presentation. We're ready for questions?
Yeah, we're right.
Hang on, Matt.
Okay, so considering that it's next year that we'll hopefully get a hold of all of this, what sort of shape and form do you think it will take? Is it going to be very similar to what you've found, or will there be, do you think, some major differences?
Okay, well, I obviously don't know, but considering the amount of effort that has been put into implementing it the way it is now, I would think that it would be a version of that, but obviously I cannot tell. If they only have 1 year, in fact, to finish this off, maybe to make the API nicer, to bridge all the remaining events and behaviors, yeah, I don't think they would go for a completely new implementation at this point. But once again, that's just my conjecture.
One of the things I remember Air Force One talking about at the keynote was this idea when they showed it in the diagram you had at the beginning of this unification of a low-level APIs. And it did kind of make a bit of a point about that. With like, they spent not only are they bringing UIKit to Mac, but they're also trying to unify all the
I forgot to mention that.
layers below UIKit. Have you seen the evidence of that in either UIKit core or in anything you've done in the last week or two? Because I know there are parts of those APIs that are lacking on iOS versus the Mac.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
Some of the drawing util on UIKit is so much better than...
Yeah, but I'm thinking more like the lower core animation, core graphics, stuff like that. There are differences between the platforms.
I think at this point, what I have seen is that some of the APIs have been cleaned up a little bit, but that's obviously is a continuing effort on their side. The other thing I believe they did is they exposed a little bit more APIs from other frameworks, not UIKit obviously, that are available on one platform to another platform. I think that's in AV Foundation from my digging through the API diffs. One interesting thing I've noticed in UIKit specifically is, okay, two things. One thing is that the scroll views, for example, now have two different implementations of scrolling dynamics. So obviously when you're running on iOS, it has one sort of behaviors for deceleration and bouncing. If you're running iOS Mac, then it's a different implementation with a bit different dynamics. The other thing I've noticed is that if you're familiar with implementation of auto layout and how UIKit interfaces with the auto layout engine, every view has, every view participating in auto layout has so-called variables, like for example, min x, min y, width, height. For scroll views, they also have content width, content height. And what I've seen is that, interestingly, now there are also content offset x and content offset y. I suppose that could be useful to display those scrollers or somehow maybe implement pinned views in scroll views, which I think is possible in NS scroll view in some form. NS scroll view is obviously much different because it has the clipping view, a bunch of containers. So maybe that's one of the ways they are exposing that functionality and making it easier. But aside from that, can't really remember anything specific.
Being the lazy dev that I am, all I want to know is, do I have to do any extra work to make my app work on the Mac?
This year, you cannot do anything, obviously. And next year, we'll see. But from what I've heard, from what I've seen, and from I think their promise really is that you take your source code and if you don't want to implement any extra Mac-like controls like toolbars and menu commands or touch bar controls, I think it's supposed to compile as is, because unless of course you're using UI web views still, and you probably shouldn't even if you're just running on your iOS. But I think really the point there is it's probably better to go an extra mile and expose, well, it will be better again in a year, to go an extra mile and expose a little bit of more Mac-specific controls, unless you want your app to look like, I don't know, a web wrapper, but with obviously native code running and native controls.
So is there any evidence at all that they're going to do any kind of mapping from iOS behaviors, so maybe like navbar buttons to the Mac behavior, like, toolbar buttons?
I have seen evidence of tab bar appearance potentially being different, but unfortunately I haven't been able to properly run Home app, which should have it. Aside from that, I don't think so. If you run and use a stocks on Mojave and like open an article, the navigation bar will appear and will just look like a navigation controller. Or for example, if I open the stocks app, you can see this table of stocks here, and I open the list. You can see this is a modal appearing inside a split, and you can see the navigation bar on top, and you can see a very specifically iOS behaviors here. Maybe that's a temporary solution, but from what I understand, there is not much going on there. Like really the scrollers, the adaptive behavior of scrolling, and the automatic focus ring that tries really hard to mimic the native AppKit focus ring, but sometimes you can see the difference. Aside from that, I don't think so. So you would need to, if I understand correctly, at this point you would need to add a little bit of extra code to plug into native controls. But once again, maybe they'll change something in a year.
So I've got two questions that are kind of related. The first is, let's say your for example, uses iOS-specific operations like, you know, swiping or two fingers tapping and stuff like that. Is there anything from you peeking inside using Reveal that reveals what they're potentially doing to try and make it work? And question number 2 is, once you do make this Mac app, is the intended purpose, I mean, is the intention that you put it on the Mac App Store, or can you distribute it for downloading on the internet?
Okay, well, I'll answer the second question first because it should be quicker. The answer is I don't know. I don't think we have had any announcements about that just yet. I think there were some podcasts that referenced the same question. I mean, obviously, I would hope that we could distribute on outside of App Store, but I wouldn't hold my breath, to be honest. Answering the first question, I actually totally forgot to look into any custom gesture recognizers that may be present inside a running iOS Mac app, but the event mapping that is referenced actually in the has been referenced in Keynote and State of the Union. It's actually pretty full on. It will map the two-finger trackpad movement or the scroll wheel gesture to an actual tap and drag. It will map, I think, double clicking to a long tapping. I think it also maps right clicking to something. So I think they've gone through these in the presentation. Obviously, you could also try to dig into specific gestures. I don't remember anything about custom gestures though. It's quite possible that if you have any custom gesture recognizers or gestures you're implementing with multi-touch using, say, touch begin or touch end, that may not work as good, possibly. So standard gestures, standard interactions should work well. Standard gesture recognizers should, I think, also work well. Especially because there are many overlapping gestures that exist as UI gesture recognizer API versus NS gesture recognizer API. For example, pinch and rotate gestures, they exist on the trackpad as well. So these should map well. But custom ones, not sure.
You said trackpad. What if you don't have a trackpad? Does it map anything?
Well, bad chance. Well, maybe, theoretically, in a year we will see some sort of API that will allow us to detect that modifier keys are held, like Command, Option, Shift, and Control, so that we could then map these interactions to our custom gestures, but haven't seen that in particular yet.
So this might be a stupid question, but considering at a simplified level that UIKit is a high-level abstraction on top of core animation and the hit system, why do multiple apps have to be hosted in a separate process? Why can't they just be hosted in the same process as a Mac app with AppKit and share the same address space and just be abstracting the Mac event model and all of that? Why does it need to be hosted in a separate process? Why do you think they went that way rather than just change a bit the abstraction layer and just host it in an AppKit app, if that makes sense?
Well, I think this could be one of the things that change in the next year, but just subjectively, I would think that's because even though UIKit is a wrapper on top of core animation and other frameworks, it's a pretty thick wrapper. Like, it has a lot of things, both just internally and from what we have, to implement all the features that have appeared since iOS 2, essentially. And maybe trying to replicate them all would be difficult? I'm not sure. What else? Yeah, I think you have an interesting point in terms of why are they hosted. Maybe just because some of the frameworks that you would, they're talking obviously about how they try to converge the frameworks, but that's not completely there yet. And so some of the frameworks that an iOS Mac app is linking against. They're in that iOS support library, and maybe they just have slightly different behavior from what you would have if you link directly to the Mac version of that. So obviously, if trying to have the same address space might be problematic.
Yeah, my conjecture for why it's a host app is I think the host app probably was born of the simulator.
Sorry, what was? It was what?
It was probably born of the simulator.
Oh, sure.
As in, like, the simulator is the host app for iOS app already.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
It's mapping a variety of sort of thing in already. So I think they're just taking the architecture of the simulator and modifying it.
And given that I'm pretty sure that the Mac side of things has been worked on at least partially by people responsible for the simulator, that makes sense. Anyone else?
So, yeah, last two questions. Pete has chimed in from London on Skype.
Hey, Pete.
Hey, Pete. He asked, so given how this is built, it seems obvious that the intention is that you'll either write 100% UI kit or write 100% app kit, and you won't mix the two. Does that match what you think?
Given that UIKit host app is the app kit part of this bridge, and that when you're launching a UIKit app, an iOS Mac app, you don't have direct access to AppKit. In fact, if you try to link AppKit, I'm pretty sure the system will reject that because it's in the blacklist. Yes, I believe that I don't think you can really mix and match these. You can only have one or another, but that's just my subjective, that's just what I think at this point.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Thank you.
Hello everyone. Good evening. I am Prasanna. I'm the technical lead for mobile apps at realestate.com.au. This is better? Close. I would like to start today with a couple of scenarios that happens in an organization like realestate.com.au and perhaps others. Every so often, the mobile teams get an invite to a calendar invite to a product release, a product launch celebration kind of thing from another part of the business. People sitting in another area of the business, this happens quite often because there's a lot of experimentation going on. There's a lot of areas in the business. It's a large enough business. When something like this happens, and there is a specific, in this specific one was about a couple of years ago. This is a product called property value, and you go in. Usually happens is that there's a lot of snacks and cake. There is usually talks. There's people talk about how they made this happen. What does the team look like, and everything. And there's usually a panel, and then at the end there's usually a Q&A. In the Q&A, again, generally there's a question about, hey, but what about mobile? Not from me, not always. But there is this question, and the answer usually is, of course, we thought about mobile. Of course, we are mobile first, and there is a beautiful mobile experience from the scratch on mobile web. This goes live, a few months goes by, and if the product is successful, if it is a successful product, and this one was, this property update, property value was a product where you could put in your address and it will give you the estimated price for this property, which is great, and it will also give you a transaction history, rental history for that property, as well as other properties in that street. It's a really useful feature. It is a web view as well. It's not, the experience itself is not that great. So few months goes by, and if it is a successful product, they will come to the mobile teams and go, hey, we would love to add this feature into the mobile apps. Of course, we don't want to redo the whole thing again. That will be a waste. Are you able to just put in a button at the bottom, sometimes literally a button at the bottom, and when you tap on that, you can see the web view. So that happens all the time. And a couple of years ago, we started thinking about, why does this happen again and again? Why does this keep happening? Obviously, these are really smart people working in really smart teams, working with good intentions. They want to get the best experience for their teams. And obviously, the problem is that capabilities drive requirements, and which means that when you put a team of backend engineers and web engineers, they come up with requirements that are suitable for those systems. It would be great to get a couple of mobile engineers in all these teams that have these capabilities, and they'll automatically start making requirements that are for apps as well. That brings us to scenario 2. That's also all the other areas where there are web views in the app. There is this one team in the organization where they've been putting in web views for a little bit of time. They've been doing this way, and they find that that's good. It reaches a lot of people, this way of delivering features. It reaches a lot of people, but then product conversion at some point tapers off. It's not great. To solve that problem, they thought that we can either wait for the mobile teams, there's this one mobile team or two mobile teams in an organization, to add it to their backlog and wait, or they can hire some mobile developers and start doing this. That's great. And they started trying this. They asked about this. They come to us, they show us this feature and go, this is what we would like to do. What do you think? And they go, that sounds great. Go ahead, do it. They want to put something in the apps. They come back to us in a month or so and go, this is really hard. There is a lot to understand here. This is a small team that we're putting together. It is really, really hard to put something inside the apps that is, it is hard to understand iOS and Android. They are completely two different architectures. And this needs to be easier than it is so that they can do this often. This does not scale. This is the problem that at RAA we started looking at over a couple of years ago. And we've been looking at what needs to change so that we can be a mobile-centric organization, which means that any area of the business can have mobile capability and can start contributing. There are organizational process changes that obviously are needed. Communication changes, there's a lot of changes needed there. There's also a architectural change that is needed because you want to be able to contribute content without having to know the world about your architecture. I'll put the core part of the apps. And that's the premise of my talk, scaling mobile with architecture. Top level goals for this architecture that we thought about were support all teams in contributing to key areas of the apps. It's fine if at the start the other areas of the business are not able to contribute to all areas of the apps. If they are able to contribute to in a couple of strategic areas, like for us, search results screen, that is a really important one. If they're able to contribute and that is a good starting point, that is great. Teams should be able to focus on their own content without having to worry about the infrastructure, how to put it in and how do you get the results and all the things that come along with it. And we want a similar way of contributing across iOS and Android because many of the engineers now in our teams are across iOS and Android. They are mobile developers, which means that they are either iOS primary or Android primary. So if an engineer goes in and they are able to make this change, make this content available in one of their primary areas, if this is an Android developer, and they're able to contribute content, and if they go to iOS, and if the models and the architecture is very similar, it makes it really easy for them. With that in mind, I would like to talk about some of the, we've been working on this for about 8 months now, and the first release of this went out a couple of months ago in a smaller area of the app, and next month we'll be releasing this in search results screen. I would like to talk about some of the aspects of the architecture here. At the top level, the core to the architecture core to this architecture is ability for other areas of the organization to be able to register to provide content to certain areas. So we started with search results. There's the app, and we started with the search results as a module, and you can provide all these and more different types of content to the apps, to the search results. There's more here, and this is the sum of them. When a team wants to contribute, we want to make that into its own silo. They don't have to understand. They don't have to go into the main app to start making this content available. So they'll be working inside their modules. These are all CocoaPods. This LOB1 is one CocoaPod. Line of Business 2 is another CocoaPod, and they're able to make these things available. And in the search results, there is a registry into which all these other modules register to say, hey, I can provide you content, and these are the types of contents that I can give you. Modules declare interested types. These are the, I can go ahead.
I'm struggling to understand what you're saying. So could you clarify, for example, when you say a team, are these multidisciplinary teams that want to provide content? What do you mean by content? What does that mean?
For example, in search results screen, if a team that is working on a feature like property value, say, and they want to put a call to action, and when you tap on that, you want to be able to. Product teams which has developers, product designers, everybody, in any decent sized organization. Modules declare their interested types. So for example, a residential module declares that it is interested in a listing, it's a property, and another product called legions, let's say. And another module might say, I'm interested in a couple of types of ads, that kind of things. Using that mechanism, the search results then, search results view control then registers those types, those kinds of cells with the collection view. So as soon as it gets that it is a listing and a legion, it then registers with the collection view. Let's talk about next what the data looks like. We have a mobile companion API, which is it gives us the experience API. The mobile companion API collates all the information from all the other sources and gives it to the mobile apps exactly as the mobile apps need it. So if you're looking at the mobile companion API and if it gives you a listing, that's an object, and because it has already registered the cells, as soon as the listing object comes in, and it can immediately go, what is the cell that is available for this model using this reuse identifier. Like the model has a reuse identifier, and it immediately asks you what is the cell, and the collection view gives you the cell because it is happening in 2 different stages. As soon as you have the cell, then you can give it the listing object, the listing model, and you're able to create the complete view, and you're able to display that. The companion API returns view models and not models, which means that to display a property, it is only giving you things that are needed to display that, not the whole listing object, and there is no conversion happening there, which means that all the model to view model transformations that were happening in both iOS and Android, all the testing now just moves to the companion API, and any of the transformations that needs to happen, any changes in transformation that can happen without having to do an app update. Another interesting thing here is we are using protocol buffers for the transportation mechanism instead of JSON. We started looking at protocol buffers as a way to make things fast. It is a really, it is about 1/4 of the size of a JSON payload at a considerable size. But the important distinction and the important way, big advantage of this we've seen so far is that the same model is being used across the companion API, the backend, the iOS and the Android apps. That is a great thing because you don't talk about contract as soon as that happens. What you're talking about is how do you model this domain. That is a really important distinction. And size is a good bonus as well. Once we have this where the companion API is giving you the view objects, view models, and you're able to get that, and it is being dispersed to any of the registered contents. We next start thinking about, okay, that's great, but all of these teams are starting to put together, all of these teams are starting to create very similar views. For example, this is a property, and there is another kind of property or another team that owns the developer listings, the developer projects. And they both have many of the same ideas here. At the top is a it's an agent profile, carousel, and then these little things, the green and the things of the tags and the info panel. There's a little agent image. All of those things are across multiple different modules. We don't want these teams to be creating them again and again. The part of making it easy for them to develop apps is to make it available easily for them. So as soon as we see that a team, more than one team wants a UI element, we make it available in a thing called common UI so that they can just take it and give it the model and it'll appear. The good thing about this is that in one of those UI elements, if for some reason the backend is giving you a malformed information, it's a protocol buffer, one of the things is not available, that UI part just collapses. In that property, if you're able to see that there is a carousel is missing for some reason, it just collapses, and you still see a listing, but without the carousel. So what is in the common UI? All of those, the top agent branding image. There is the carousel, the tags, the whole of info panel. All these bits, bobs, and cards. That is the feature strip. That whole thing and the save star. All of these things are available. We are very careful to make sure that is not very bloated. Only when if a couple of elements inside your module needs a thing, you don't put it into common UI. Only when you traverse across multiple modules, then you put it into the common UI. This is something. Dynamic content is not something that is core to the goal of the architecture, but this is something that we pushed our boundaries a little bit to see where we can get, but this is one of my favorite things in the architecture. So each of those elements here, like I talked about, this is, on the left-hand side is the template. You have a template and the branding strip, carousel, it has an info panel and an avatar there. Those are the main components. Each of those components have multiple different sizes based on how expensive that ad is. When you get that, what ends up happening is when you, for each of those things can be in 3 different layouts. So say the branding strip can be in small, medium, large. The carousel can be in small, medium, large. Info panel can be in 2 different sizes. So that means that you're having to put together like 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by, it's about 52 different cells you're having to put together. Obviously, we would like to avoid that. What we've done is pull up that template, and then when the companion API gives us the results, what it does is it puts together a little reuse identifier for that combination of the layouts and each of these objects. So as soon as that comes in, the collection view creates a set of those reuse identifiers and registers those reuse identifiers. And so in the next version of the app, where for some reason we we create a combination that is not available today, there is no app update needed, and the collection view just creates it on the fly. Backwards compatibility. When we are submitting apps like this and many of the data comes from the backend, there is always the risk of we need to consider backwards compatibility. That Protobufs helps a little bit there. What happens is if you release an app today and in the next version of the app you add a new kind of a list, new kind of item in the list, that comes up in the old versions of the app as unknown. And as soon as it is an enum and it just comes up as an unknown and you just drop that. That's pretty good. Another kind of backwards compatibility where we need is what I talked about just before. In the layout, the carousel, you have three kinds of layouts, small, medium, and large. And if at some point in the future we want an XL layout, what happens to the older versions of the app? We obviously do not want to carry over all those extra logic to add it to only the new versions of the app, and you don't want to also, for an XL, you don't want to fall back to a small, because that will be bad for people who paid for those heads. The way that works is, we've been able, it works like the font family in CSS, so it is like each of the elements is the layout is a list of layouts. So it is, at the moment, it simply says an array of large layout. If you add an XL layout in the future, and as soon as you need backwards compatibility, you add XL and the L, which means that there's a concept of first available layout. The view there displays the first available, first known layout it knows about, and then it displays that. We've talked about search results, and about a couple of months ago, we started thinking about like, well, what does this look like in other screens, other areas of the apps? What can we do? Do we want to put together like infrastructure similar to this? Well, we thought that many of the screens in our apps are large scrolling list of items. So what we looked at was we are able to just remove the search results and move it extract the list part into a universal list, so that the search results and the collections and let's say inbox, all those areas can now use the same infrastructure, which means that other areas of the businesses, like if you create a completely new instance of this universal list, which composes, its search results is composing a universal list, but if let's say inbox screen also wants to compose a universal list, it is able to register a completely different set of modules and a completely different set of content, and it behaves like a completely different UI component. With this, we are, like I said before, we are going out live with this at the end of this month, and we've been working with a couple of partners inside, teams inside the business to get feedback and working with them. Next, we'll be opening up into the to everybody. That's all I have. Thank you. Questions from them?
This is not really related to your talk, but it's related to something you said. You're using protobus for your payload. Are you using gRPCs for your servers, or are you using something else to transfer the protobus?
No, we're using protobus across HTTP. Yeah.
Hey,
They're just RESTful APIs, sorry.
Good talk. Got a couple of questions. First one is, this actually sounds like a really good approach to reusable, extensible UI.
Thank you.
Are you thinking about doing some blog posts or maybe an open source project that demonstrates it down the track?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're in the delivery pressure of delivering this thing in about 15 days. This is the first part of it. We would like to, yes.
Cool. Second question is, you said one of the goals was to get more parts of business involved, more teams contributing. Why did you choose this particular approach over something like React Native, given that REA has a lot of JavaScript devs?
The whole point we were trying to get to was to make it a better app. Well, we have a lot of mobile engineers who do a good job. We think to put content into mobile is not to just come in with whatever you know. Learn mobile to do a good mobile app. And we haven't proven out that React Native is faster in any way, or it translates over in any way. So.
Kasana, can you tell me a bit more about the overlap between the people that write the companion API and the people that work on the mobile app? Is there a shared understanding of the two?
I've missed saying that the companion API is owned by our team. It is our team. And that doesn't mean everybody in my team know very well about backend engineering. We have a couple of really good engineers, and we work with them. I would like to get to a point where all our mobile engineers are very good at, or at least pretty good at backend engineering. Because we are talking about the same models, that brings us a ubiquitous language. So we are talking about the exact same thing from design to code. Branding strip. As soon as you say a branding strip, everybody knows from product to design to the backend engineers to the mobile engineers. So that really helps. And the modeling is done the same way. So there's that's how we're working together with the backend engineers.
Can you share what the platform is?
Oh, sure. It's Java 8, the backend.
Thanks.
I have so many questions. But I can probably only think with you.
Save the good ones for the top.
Yeah. So can you talk about how you facilitated that communication between everyone? So from the designers through to I have some inside knowledge on this, but I want to maybe explain some of it so the rest of the people get. And the other thing I'm interested in is, have you done any thinking at all about extending this model beyond just content providers? So, one of the classic things you can do on is styling a favorite property.
The last bit, can you please say that again?
So you can favorite property, right? So you can perform actions on pieces of content. You can also obviously dig into those content, right? So you tap on a property and it takes you somewhere else in the app. So I'm just wondering if you've done any preparatory thinking about how to enable teams to build sort of deeper virtual experiences, like I tap on this property and it takes me some place, and it's not just a web view.
Yep. I'll answer the first one. How do you enable the communication between the designers and product and the engineers? We started with the concept of native design system, where everybody's doing a design system. As soon as you identify that there is a view that needs to go, there is an object that needs to go into the apps, we add it to the native design system. It's a website where you can see that. You click on it and see it, and at various layouts you can see the sizes at different operating systems. So it is very clear for everyone to see. Unlike in React projects, there's no JavaScript code you can copy and paste, but it is there for you to look at immediately, and it is a challenge for you to keep it updated as of now. What is in the common UI is really important for us to keep it updated in the NDS. That's how we are handling that. Second part, other areas, for example, this starring, because they are in modules, these are challenges we had to go through before we could release it. Obviously, I only talked about certain aspects of it. So the saved nature of a property stays in a completely different data source. That doesn't come from the search results. That is being overimposed from a different data source, which comes from another backend, and you store it locally. Because that is personal data for this user, you do not have to wait until the search results is there to get that data. So as soon as you launch the app, you kind of do a sync mechanism and you get those results, what properties are saved. And then when the search results is displayed, there is the search results screen kind of has a annotate, like the bookmarks handler kind of thing. So I'm ready to accept any bookmark views, like you tell me. So you either tell it that it is lit up or it's off, and it turns it on based on the based on this other data source, and that is coming from the main app. The main app is the tells you, and the search results is the observer there.
One very good one. Did you have any problems debugging protocol buffers? Like, so I know there's a lot of talking around debugging HTTP JSON payloads. What are you using to debug that, or do you not have to debug it because it's kind of a better term, a strongly typed payload?
We do need to debug it. It's probably useful to arrive at how we got to protobuf. We started, it's a large risk to go to something like protobuf. So what we did was we did a spike to see how it works, what's the speed. Obviously, we did not figure out that the advantage of the shared models and everything in the spike, because there's only so much you can do in a spike. What we ended up doing was, at some point, it looks good, but we are not sure. So let's, at the very start of this project, let's keep going with this for 1 month. And we meet up after a month and go, okay, this is terrible, let's just roll it back. At that point, it's not that hard to roll it back. There's only a few models in that way. And in that month, we looked at it and go, we figured that it is really good. These conversations are extremely good, what we're having. Next, debugging. Charles has first-class support for protocol buffers, so you can completely see all of those things.
Just another quick one. Your first slide said that the components register with the search results screen, and then they kind of know about it. But isn't the companion API really meant to dictate what gets composed in there? Like, why did you need that registration step? Why doesn't the search results just go, hey, companion app said throw this in there?
We want to separate the concept of, if let's say we get to a point where we have 500 things going into a search result screen. It's not, it is very possible. And that's right. So 500 things. We want to separate it and go, these kind of items are only registered to the inbox screen, and that never goes into the search result screen. And it is possible to come back from the companion API, but it never goes on the screen.
Some of this dynamic behaviour has introduced a lot of testing challenges.
Yeah. It does. We haven't proven, we've tried to prove it out by, there is 52 possibilities of the permutations. We have tried that out by putting it in the example app of the module. So a residential module, like I said, that has that 52 permutations possible. And if you launch the example app, it just displays all of those things. That's kind of it at the moment. We're not seeing the pain of it. I'm sure we will have to figure this out. Like how do you test this? Even though you can display 52 different things, there are actually only about 4 things that will ever come back from the companion API. This is just a future-proofing mechanism where, in case 6 months from now somebody asks for, hey, I would like to display it this way, you don't have to make an update for a small thing. It's just there.
Cool. Is there any more questions, guys?